Welcome to my podcast. My name is Corrinala. I come to you from the Pacific Northwest where I live with my partner, our 2 kitties, and 2 adopted Mustangs. Information about the Wild Horse Adoption Program will be in the episode description box. This podcast covers knitting projects, my horsemanship journey, and my other passions like vegetable gardening and bicycling. If you're new here, I hope you find the content interesting. If you're a returning viewer, it's always great to have old friends. The format of this channel typically includes musings on an early walk to the barn to feed the horses, then knitting content, some catch up on the horsemanship journey, and finally more musings or maybe a little bicycling footage if I was lucky enough to get out. Enjoy, and I hope to see you soon. Good morning, friends. I'm doing things a little bit differently today. Ordinarily, I would be walking out to the barn and just talking about my plans and feeding the horses and then coming back to do the knitting segment. I'm changing this up a little bit today because I am going to a knitting class. There's a fiber festival that's not too far from here. It's a relatively new one. And frankly, I don't remember what it's called. I'll try to get some footage while I'm there. Herbert's trying to get on the table, so you're going to tickle his tummy. Because I don't want him to knock things down. I've got my little list of notes here because I feel like I have a lot to talk about. Anyway, I'm going to a class. It is being taught by Jamie Lomax, who is Pacific Knits Yarn. And the class I'm taking is a color work using her doodles. So she has this book, the Doodle Directory, and she also has this doodle deck, which is a deck of cards that has doodles on everything and instructions on how to make an infinity cowl. This one has a few patterns in it, including socks. So I'm hoping to learn how to use her doodles to make some color work socks. Let me see if this piece of paper that has the class instructions on it. Nope, it does not. So I'll tell you about that later. I just picked a bunch of scrap yarns, kind of DK weight yarns that I thought might be good contrast colors, and they're just scraps that I have. And I picked a couple more. These might be worsted weight, so I'm not sure if they're going to work. But I have all my stuff in this bag. This is a bag that Randy made me out of scraps of leather. He has an industrial sewing machine, and this is a belt that he had in high school that his mom gave him. So he's never really worn that belt, but I'm glad that he was able to put it to use by making it into this bag. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to do that class this morning. It starts at 9:30, which is why things are a little out of order. Because today also my horse trainer is coming to work with Bragi and Odin in the trailer, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Probably during the walk to the barn, I'll talk about how they're progressing. Trying to stay on track here. I am going back to the Fiber Festival on Sunday to meet up with a friend, and that's the second day that the vendors will be there. There will be no vendors there today except maybe a coffee stand. The yarn vendors and fiber vendors will be setting up today, and then they open tomorrow. So that's the plan for the weekend. And I'm going to try to figure out how to get some footage in. Maybe this podcast will go out later than it normally does. We'll have to just see about that. You're probably aware, if you watched my last full episode and saw my Wisconsin vlogs, I made 3 vlogs while we were in Wisconsin of my nephew's high school graduation and other activities that we did, but most of the trip was centered around family and graduation activities and stuff like that. There was a lot of back and forth between Randy and me staying with my mom and stepdad, and also my sister and her husband. And they live nearly an hour apart. So sometimes logistics were a little bit tricky, but we did have a lot of fun and got some great visiting time in. And it was just a wonderful trip. Which brings me to the knitting. So this is my finished object. I was very monogamous about knitting this. This is the Lola top. So this is the second one I've knit. Similar colors to the first one that I knit. This one's a little bit more fitted. My one complaint is that the back is still a little bit gappy, which I don't think I'm going to be able to show you without being very awkward. But you can imagine the back's a little bit lower than front. I love the coverage on this. This is made out of cotton. The first one I made was probably kind of a sport weight or maybe DK weight, held double. This was a thicker cotton that was leftovers from my crocheted float tote. And I had enough yarn to make this. And I think this was more of an Aran weight. So the gauge swatch really helped me this time. I haven't always had good luck with the gauge swatch, but I was very careful about the count and doing the math to make sure the stitches fit me properly. So even still, the back, which is a longer version of this because it goes like right across my shoulder blades, it just sort of gapes out. But other than that, well, let me show you the one that's closer. Although this is my right arm, so I'm still dealing with that injury from January, my shoulder dislocation, but it's much better. But anyway, there's good fit under the armpit, great bra strap coverage. So super happy about it, and I pretty much finished it while we were there. So I think I cast on maybe around the 1st of May, maybe later than that even. All that to say, it took me about 2 weeks to knit this, and I had a lot of knitting time on the plane, and then some days I had a lot of knitting time when we didn't have activities planned, but there were a lot of activities for graduation. If you didn't catch my Wisconsin vlogs, they're fairly short. In fact, I think one of them's maybe only a minute and a half. So I hope you enjoy those. But let's talk, and I just want to talk about this sweater. This is the Corran cardigan. It is designed by Rebecca Clow, also known as the Crayabea. That is her podcast handle. She has a YouTube channel. She's a very prolific designer and knitter based in Edinburgh, in Scotland. She has well-written patterns. I love this. This sweater suffered a little bit because my sister and I went for a walk in the woods, which we knew there would be ticks, but there were a lot of ticks. So basically what we did when we got back to the house and started noticing ticks is that we changed clothes and then threw everything in the wash, which included this because I was wearing the sweater. It survived the washing machine just fine. It's cotton. This is made out of a DK weight cotton. I feel like there was a place where this, oh yeah, if you can see that. There's a little bit of a hole here, but it doesn't seem to be unraveling. I think this was just a mistake I made when I was doing the pattern, and the washing machine just enhanced it. But it's under my elbow, so I don't care, and it's not unraveling. Let's talk about works in progress, shall we? I did forget to mention what day it is. It is Friday, June 6th, 2025. Friday is my day off typically. I work 4 10-hour days, and it is awesome when I actually get to take my day off. So that's why I get to take this knitting class and have a horse training lesson. So again, this is the float tote. This is a pattern by Love and Stitches Nitty Natty, who currently is my favorite podcaster. And in this is, let me see if I can, why this is called the float tote is that it is designed specifically for color work. So in this is a tray. If you haven't seen this before, you can take everything out of the bag so I can show you the tray. And it keeps your yarn organized. So you put your yarn cakes in these cups. She designed these yarn cups so that you could pull from the inside. I don't like to do that. My winding skills apparently aren't very good. So these cups, by the way, are attached. They're supposed to be attached by magnetic snaps, but I bought the wrong snaps. So I pull from the outside. The balls get smaller, but they stay in there just fine. And then when if you have worked with color work before, sometimes your bag, my camera just stopped for some reason. Even though you put everything back in your bag carefully, it can be a little bit of a mess. So what this does is that it just keeps your yarn organized so that you can just more easily start knitting. I want to point out these stitch stoppers. So Carrie of My Wool Mitten gave these to me in a care package. Whoops, sorry, it's backwards for me. When I first announced that I had injured myself, and she put together this really lovely care package that included these stitch stoppers. So love them. I use them all the time. I use them on my favorite projects typically. Speaking of favorite projects, this is, let me show you the front side. This is called the Backlit Tee. Color work using self-strapping yarn. I am using, this is a Freckled Whimsy self-strapping yarn, and the main color is this kind of burgundy color that is coming out nicely. So the self-strapping yarn is Magical Umbrella. It's the August 2023 from the Harry Potter Spells and Things club that she had then. The main color is called Observatory Circle. Studio Sock, it's 100% organic merino. So it doesn't have any nylon in it, which I typically wouldn't use that for socks, for wearing socks, but it makes great contrast color. So I bought this at a yarn store in Ellensburg, Washington. Neighborhood Fiber Co. is the design, or the dyer. And I don't see any other information about it, but here is the label. And I think it's working out quite beautifully. The pattern is by Stephanie Lotven, also known as Telly B Knits. I've knit a fair number of her patterns, and I have knit this particular sweater before in the short sleeve version. I'm hoping to make this a long sleeve version, but I am going to have to weigh my yarn carefully at some point because I have 2 skeins of the that solid color, that main color. So, and I'm using US 6 needles, so that's 4mm. So this is the book that it comes in. This is this T up here is the pattern, the backlit T. I've made the other one. This is the second one, so this is kind of a, talked about doing repeat knits. I think I did that maybe in my last episode. I use 2 skeins of Legacy Fiber Arts sock yarn, and it's a bit cropped, but it works fine with high-waisted jeans. And this actually brings me on to the next project because, and I did some knitting on this in Wisconsin. I'm also knitting this pattern. Let me see. Oops, wrong way. This pattern right here, which is called Bright Axis Tee. So the purpose of this book is knitting garments with self-striping yarn, to really feature the self-striping yarn if you don't want all socks. So this book has been a great investment. And let me see, what bag is this in? This one is a bottom-up sweater. So right now I'm just knitting all the stockinette. So I'm knitting that body piece. I have, you know, maybe not, at least a quarter of this done. This yarn is a fingering weight yarn. Let me get the ribbing folded down correctly. The cats are playing, so I don't know if you can hear that. They're having a good time. They had a squabble the other night, but that was easily resolved with some catnip and some playtime. Distract them from each other. I don't know if this color, it's kind of a light blue. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's a Knit Picks yarn. This is what it looks like in the skein. Let me see what it is. It's 70% merino wool, 30% silk. Do they have colorways on here? Oh, Clarity. So it's the gloss. And then the contrast color, the part that's going to go across here, is also a Freckled Whimsy yarn in this colorway. And it is Dumbledore's Socks. So Spells and Things #2. This is November 2022. So Freckled Whimsy. If you've been here before, you know that I'm a big fan of Freckled Whimsy yarns, self-striping yarns. I think she does a great job. And the needles I am using, excuse me, the ribbing was a size 3. What is the, I want to say that these are a, I think they're a Knit Picks, what do you call them, interchangeable needles. I believe they're a size 5, which I think is a 3.75. And the ribbing, I said we're a size 3, so those are 3.25 millimeter. Oh. Second project on the go. This bag was made by my mom. She is a quilter and has lots of fabric, and has knit me these very nice, very simple drawstring bags, which I really enjoy. And this is garlic. Kind of fits on the gardening theme. I'll talk about gardening in a little bit. Well, I'll probably forget. So I'm just going to mention I have been doing some harvesting. We've gotten some asparagus. Most of the lettuces and greens have bolted. We've had just this really, I'm looking outside. We've had this really nice stretch of warm, dry weather. So there's some things, the peas are doing great. The fava beans are flowering. I'm just trying to think of what else is out there. The radishes all bolted. So I'm starting to do, you know, just trying to plant more summer squash and summer plants. The tomatoes are doing fine. Eggplant seems to be doing okay. And the cucumbers and melons are doing, they're growing. Let me put it that way. What else do I have? What did I do with my list? I'm not sure what I did with my list, but we'll just carry on. So in this bag, also made by my mom, this is a quilted bag, quilted drawstring bag, which I really like. It's a little bit sturdier. This is the mini mock neck I don't know why I call it mini. Is that true? By Jessie Maed Designs, and it's kind of a jumble because I just joined it. You knit it in pieces and then you join, and I just joined like the shoulder pieces, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And then you work on the armhole shaping. I assume your head goes in here, and then this is the armhole, and then this is the back. So this, 2 strands of lace weight held together. This is a hand-dyed yarn by Nativity, who's an independent dyer. This is BFL lace, 100% superwash, and hand-dyed at the Nativity Studio in Houston, Texas. So it is, the website is nativity.com. Oops. I'm really bad at this. And this is what it looks like in the cake. So this was a custom dye. I saw he had this offered just kind of in a fingering weight, sock weight, and for some reason I wanted lace, so I had him dye 2 skeins of yarn for me, and then I decided to make it into this. I'm using US size 4s, which is 3.5 millimeters. So, and the ones that I am using as a holder, these are also 3.5 millimeter. So, and I am cleverly using this gnome stitch stopper to hold the needles together. So I've got a little bit of a mess going on here, but I think it's going to straighten out here pretty soon. So I got these stitch stoppers in an advent. It was Polka Dot Creek, which was super fun. So that's that. And what else do I have? I have a new cast on. And I just started it, but it's a blanket. You might remember that I had a blanket in this bag, also made by my mom. It was I'll think of it. It's a free pattern, and it's the Coziest Memories blanket by Kemper Ray. Well, Kate Jones, and the Bakery Bears always does a summer of stitching. And this summer, she designed a blanket, and it's called 100 Acre Wood. The theme is Pooh Bear and the 100 Acre Wood. So she designed a little bit slightly different, see if I can do this without pulling out anything important, a slightly different mitered square blanket. And this is all I have so far. Just this little bit, some scrap yarn. I wanted to start with this colorway, which is Freckled Whimsy, not surprising. So it takes the Kemper Ray's blanket, I want to say takes like 4 grams of yarn. Kay Jones blanket, it's smaller squares, and it takes slightly, I want to say maybe 3 grams of yarn. So you can use smaller scraps of yarn. So if you were a blanket knitter, which I've never knit a blanket for, I have lots of crocheted blankets that, frankly, I started a granny square blanket. My mom and I, and my sister, I think, crocheted some too in the 1970s. So we have a lot of blankets, and I typically am not drawn to them, but I have a lot of scraps, and I wanted to know what to do with them. And I think this is perfect. It's going to be a long-term project. The needles I'm using are the Addie's Flexi Flips that are flexible in the middle, and they are 2.75 millimeter, which I don't know what US size that is. Maybe that's a 2. It's probably a 2. So that's where I am with that. I have enough projects on the go, and of course, going to that class, I'm going to start another one here. I have 2 pairs of socks in hibernation. I started some scrappy socks, and then I started to cast on another pair of socks for what I thought I was going to do on the plane ride to Wisconsin, but then I ended up working on this sweater. So the socks are hibernating, and I have plenty of socks, so that's where I'm at. I've also been frogging this calliope sweater. It's a fingering weight yarn, also hand-dyed yarn, at least the fingering weight, hand-dyed yarn by Nativity in this lovely blue. I got a twin set, so I got 2 skeins of this lovely blue, and I frogged the calliope because I didn't like the way it fit. It was too big. So frogging it, got most of it done. I ran into a little bit of a snag, and but have sorted that out since then. And it's held double with mohair, and the mohair, I believe, is a Barocco yarn. So what I'm going to do is knit another Love Note sweater by Tin Can Knits. So I have a Love Note sweater that I really like, and so I thought I'd knit another one. So that's what I'm going to do with this when I'm done frogging it and when I'm done with some of my other projects. I have a lot of projects on the go right now, as you can see, and they're garments, so they're going to take a while. So put this back in my pile. I really wish I knew what I did with my notes. Not that it's a tragedy if I miss something, because I'll think about it later and bring it up. I've been talking a lot about knitting, so I think I have 25 minutes of knitting so far. I just want to talk about some plans that I'm making. I have a couple design ideas, and when am I going to do that? I don't know. It's summer. It's time for outside activities. You know, gardening is getting busy. I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my horse. All that kind of stuff. You might remember earlier this year, it was while my shoulder was definitely in the stages of injury. I was knitting the briocherie sweater, and then I didn't like it. There was just way too much fabric under the arm, and I decided that I was going to rip it out and then I was going to design my own. I'm still thinking about that. I'm going to let that stew for a while. Another thing I want to design is a poncho. You might be aware that I really like ponchos. I've turned many of my shawls into ponchos because they just work better for me. So I'm thinking about designing a poncho based on a highly modified pattern that I knit earlier, the owl cowl. And I'll try to put a picture in that in here somewhere. I'm sure I have a picture, but basically I started with a Icelandic sweater pattern, changed the motif to owls instead of the kind of classic Icelandic motif on the, this is not the crown. This is not the collar. What is the word? The yoke. I don't know why I'm coming up with C words when it's the yoke. What would be the yoke? And it ended up being not long enough for what I wanted, so I did a garter. I lengthened it by using a garter stitch and then making kind of flaps, so it's long enough but it's not restrictive, so I can have my hands out. That's kind of what I'm thinking of in my head, so I'll see how that shapes up. I imagine these design projects are going to come later this summer because I've been kind of itching to cast on another colorwork project, but I need to finish this one first, and that's the Ghost Horses pattern by Boyland Knits. It's this really cool colorwork with horses on it. It's really beautiful. I've tried knitting it a couple times and just have not got the gauge right. I knit it in the correct yarn, but messed up the color work because the contrast colors weren't contrasty enough. I knit it again in fingering weight yarn, but didn't have the gauge right, and it was just too, I tried it on and I was like a sausage in it, so I ripped that out. So I have that yarn to work with too. Then I bought the recommended yarn, which is Spin Cycle, and it's very expensive. So I have been kind of sitting on it just because with 2 errors and also very expensive yarn, I just wanted to make sure I have it right. Those are my plans. I hope this was enough yarny news for you. I am going to go out and feed the horses soon because I need to also eat breakfast and then get going to my knitting class. So this could be a long episode, or I might just break it up some. So we'll see what happens, but I'll do the little walk out to the barn and talk about the horses a little bit. See you soon. Hey friends, we are at the part where I'm going to walk out to feed the horses. I have my knitted items put away because, as this podcast says, Hay loves yarn. But I don't love bringing yarn. No, I love bringing yarn into the house. I don't love bringing hay into the house. So I'm looking for some socks. Even commercial socks. Hay loves knitted things. I was thinking, because I had talked about so many yarny things, I was kind of wondering, what do you do when your drawers and closets and bins of knitted items that you have hand knit, put all your money and time and care into it, what do you do with those items when they start getting too full? I've actually started thinking about giving some things away, like especially the less than perfect things that I did when I was more of a beginning knitter. So I'm kind of thinking of looking for maybe a local homeless shelter. I'm putting on rubber boots in case you're wondering. A local homeless shelter to donate them to. I have a poncho that has like a center piece and the back is the same, but the back I didn't count right, so there's kind of a zigzag down it, and I was thinking that would be a good candidate. And then I have another sweater made out of acrylic yarn that's a bit too big for me, that I could definitely give up. So I'm also hoping to share with you, you can see the peas right there. In fact, let's just walk that way. I have rubber boots on, so I don't care if the grass is wet, because undoubtedly it is. It's now about 7 a.m. Here are the peas. They're bush peas. I planted zucchini yesterday there. And then look at these peonies. Aren't they gorgeous? Thinking about cutting a few of these blossoms, especially the one that's down there, to bring into the house. So garlic is doing well. I harvested some scapes. I'm not sure if I'm harvesting them right, because some parts of them are a little bit chewy. Rhubarb, not sure what to do with all the rhubarb. We like rhubarb cake, but there's only so much cake we can eat. And then here I mentioned cucumbers that are growing in pots. I think that's a melon. That could be a cucumber or a melon, I'm not really sure. Strawberries, we'll have strawberries pretty soon, and the potatoes are doing great. Beautiful spring day today. Not quite summer yet, although it's acting like summer, which is atypical for even June here. Normally we don't get summer until July 5th, but we're gonna have probably a long, dry, hot summer. Here's the blueberries. I said I was going to talk about horses. I haven't been doing much with the horses since we came back from Wisconsin. The day we came back, I had a trailer loading session. Bragi went in the trailer. Odin got in behind them. We let them hang out for a few minutes and then brought them out. We're going to repeat that again because my trainer said that Bragi was just a little bit anxious about getting out, maybe worried about Odin leaving. I'm not really sure. But she really wants to make sure things are comfortable for Bragi in order to just make things easier for him. And it's definitely an interesting perspective, ducking under the fence, that I would like to adopt. I mean, I think most of us have a list of things we want to accomplish, which is fine when you're working with inanimate objects, but a lot of trainers will set a goal of like, okay, we are going to do this thing today. We are going to get in the trailer and close the door and that be that. And then next time we're going to get in the trailer and go for a drive. Hi, Bragi. My trainer is like, no, I want to make sure this is just really okay for him. There's O. What you doing, O? And I think that is just going to help build that trust and relationship and just make things a lot better for the future. So it's worth taking the time to make sure those steps are solid so that he's confident in what he's doing. So he's a very sensitive horse. Odin has more draft horse characteristics, which they might be kind of slower processors. I mean, that's kind of the way I am. I'm a little bit of a slow processor. I feel like I've changed. I used to be a very fast processor, but as I've gotten older, I've kind of switched to a slow processor. And Odin has just always been kind of a thinking horse, whereas Bragi has always been more of a reactive horse. Since they're kind of chewing on the, you can see that they're chewing on the highly grazed area of the driveway. I will get to feeding and hopefully have more yarny talk for you when I get to the yarn festival, or at least some photos. Catch you later.